Okay, hi there, guys. Just let me know if you can hear me. Hey, Paul, Lauren, and Peter. How are we going? Not such a bad day. I think there was a bit of bite in the open, and that was it at the moment. Just be wary of what happens into the close, that's all. So I'm coming through loud and clear. Awesome. Um, yeah, PNV. Been watching that. There's a good seller at 180. They're trying to cap it by the looks of it. There's some selling pressure coming in. It's just getting soaked up, which is a good sign, especially in a day like today. But God, if we didn't have the gold sector there, it'd be down a bit more. If we can just get Trump to, he could make a fortune. I saw something on Twitter the other day. Subscribe to the Trump alerts. He could start an alert service, spend 10 grand a month, and he'd probably still get a lot of people signing up to make a mint. So if we can find that, we'd be all happy. I wonder if he's having a sleep. He's going to get up and crack another tanty tonight. I love giving it to Trump. All right, let's just get into it then, guys. Welcome to Trade Setup in the live stream. It is the 26th of August, 2019. There you go. For anyone that's new, you'll see on the screen, you can join us on Twitter, the top left-hand corner, Facebook, the top right, and the bottom right, probably the most important, subscribe to us at YouTube. What is it? It's at Trade Setup capital AU. Just remember with Twitter, if you search for Trade Setup, it won't come up. It'll probably come up with something else. It's Trade_Setup. Yeah, so we'll rip into it. What we're going to do today is really just go over what the markets are doing. I mean, it's probably, we don't need to touch on any bits and pieces. It's more just where the overall markets are, the major indices, what's happening. The market's opened down today like we expected and really hasn't done a hell of a lot. No one's really willing to buy because, imagine buying today into the close, and then Trump comes out and it just goes nuts again tonight, which you could easily do. So that's what I think is just capping the market. People want to see some action now. I think it's coming to that point where if you've been squeezed out of the market or chopped around of late, personally, you'd want to see something happen. Take a step forward in the trade, not steps backwards. And then Trump's sending out so many mixed signals. What I'm reading anyway, you read some things that he's saying, oh, they're growing great, they're having a good conversation, they're still friends, da da da. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to raise tariffs because you're annoying us. I mean, that's just so convoluted to the markets. And that's why I think, if it's not going to go up, and if the market can't take this in its stride, it's coming down. It's simple as that. We've seen bull markets where bad news has been swallowed up and spat out, and the market just keeps going higher. But the way we've reacted, it's not a bull market at all. We know that, but it's a very tentative market. It's on a bit of a knife's edge. So that's why we're getting this sell-off, on Friday night. People were sort of racing at all-time highs to lock away gains in the US. We've just touched on our all-time highs and backed off. So yeah, we'll go through all that and just take a bit of a broader view at the market and what's happening, and just see what we can come up with, and see what sort of levels could cause some issues, what potentially to watch out for. All right, just making sure my charts are coming through. You can see the full screen. Why is that coming through a bit weird? Is that right? Wrong one up, haven't I? Right, let's just. No, I don't want that. So I'm just readjusting my stream screen. I think that's better. That's what we need. All right. How's everyone going today? Anyway, let's just look at what the SPY's doing to start off with. We're still down 94 points. We tipped over a bit lower than that. If you see the open, just look at a 5-minute chart. Not on the open. That was pretty much the low at 64.10, and we just bounced 18 points off the low. It's a bit of a grind. It doesn't. This kind of action, I'm not too I don't hold out too much hope coming into the close. Potentially, it might be a bit of a sell down to the close, but the fear, which I thought could easily play out, especially when we gap down a bit more um, on the open this morning. On the currencies gap down before the ASX open, currencies were down. The yen got hammered again, but the yen's bounced right back as well, by the way. So it's that when we were talking about this morning, those levels, people are reacting off those levels at the moment. Whether it's profit taking, I'd hesitate yet to guess that people are buying off the lows. Again, it takes a bit of effort. It takes a bit of cojones, I guess, to be buying off those lows when nothing's really sorted out just yet. And if anything, I'm expecting escalation. That I think China are really starting to apply the screws onto the US. Um, Yeah, and then Trump he's kind of volatile. I don't think he thinks things through. Whether it's look, it's probably not even him tweeting, but what's coming through in the news is not really thought through that well. It used to be pressure. Now it seems to be more reactive, as in he'll tweet different things to put the pressure on China, the Chinese. But now it's come to the point where the pressure, I think, is reversed, and it seems to be he's more reactive. The way he reacted on Friday night, he should have just kept quiet, thought about it, planned it, talked about it over the weekend. Um, or tweeted coming into the open today, but instead reactive, and he's just out there saying we're going to tweet, we're going to lift rate, so tariffs, increase this another 300 million rather than 10% to 15%, increase, I don't know, what is it, 25 to 25% from 20 or 20, I can't remember. So he's just basically across the board raising tariffs, but it seemed reactive, and then he's talking down, um, what's his name, Powell, saying if he happened to leave, wouldn't stop him from leaving. So basically telling him, quit. You can't do anything about it, but can you quit so I can get someone in there that's just going to drop rates? And God, that's going to cause havoc too, I think. I don't think there's much you can do at the moment to save the market. If it's going down, it's going down. Cutting rates might be short term, but if the market, you've got to realize that cutting rates never, it can buoy it, but you don't cut rates in a strong economy. You tend to cut it. And if you've got a series of cuts, it's because it's a weak economy. Now, if people start reading into that weakness when they're fearful at the moment, I think that could cause a few problems too. So if he gets what he wants, it could still cause major issues to the downside and some profit taking. So look, we'll see how it goes. Let's just get back to the daily chart here. Look, we'll start off with what's everyone else's thoughts. Let's get some activity. We'll see what the SPY's doing. The SPY, my opinion, not too bad. Let's just get rid of this. That's what we're drawing up this morning. Just scenarios, but it seems kind of buoyant. There's no real fear. I mean, those days when you get the market's expecting to come down, and then you're going to get that sort of wave of selling come in, and then it sort of bounces back a bit, and you get that big secondary wave of selling. Now that hasn't happened. We gapped down, and we've just been grinding, really consolidating these lows, sort of grinding sideways. The bad thing is we're not. This is where I'd say if we did break this level up at 64.03, we sort of grind up and break that, then yeah, we could have a bit of a reversion. We might have a good positive night tonight. Instead, we're sort of grinding sideways. We're capped. This is on the SPY anyway. Capped around 68, 80, 63, 87. And if we start getting a lower high into the close, this thing could accelerate. But at the moment, it doesn't look like it is. It's still looking to sort of hold it. That's not what I wanted. Why is that still there? It's sort of grinding up to sideways. It's been capped. It's sort of high low in here. It hasn't proven itself yet. If that high low, if we can't press up through that high at 63.87 and we sellers start coming back in, yeah, we could get that acceleration. But normally with the fear-driven market, everyone was sort of looked like they were just wiped out on the open. Instead of getting that sort of push down, bounce back, and then another sell-off to end up down 150 points, we've been holding our ground at the moment. And we have come down quite heavily. We're down on, was that Friday night? That was Friday night. We're going sideways up until then, up into it was at 4 o'clock. So that was the close on Friday, up towards that 64.85. I think maybe just got to keep an eye on it. It's hard to, I wouldn't be long or short just at the moment. Maybe if we get a lower high, could short the SPY into the close. Certainly wouldn't be buying it because that latest price action is more, it's a real grind at the moment. This could be, if anyone just saw what I've just drew up. So that's sort of the first pullback. We sort of grinding sideways, and then we've got a resistance zone up here, or a liquidity zone at 64.85. That's the extension down. So we've sort of extended that. Maybe have to grind back up. That comes right back into play at 64.03. That volatility expansion on the downside. Let's just like a bigger time frame chart. That's not going to be any good, is it? No, let's just go to the, we've figured about that, go to the AEST. I'm just trying to check out what it looks like. So we've got a big press down. Let's get rid of that. So the market's pressed down off the high. That was a capitulation. It's grinding back up, had another big sell-off to put in the low at 63.04. Bit of a grind back and capped below that 65, 65.37 level. Let's just get all that out of the way. Capped up here, so a selling stepping in, a lower high was coming into play. If that's a lower high on the bigger picture, we could have this extension. So you could be looking at something like this, but from sort of up at that high. So we could be looking towards, 62.42. But at the moment, like I said, it seems to be holding up okay. We'll just have to see. It just depends. I mean, the thing is, it's really hard. Who would any of you want to be buying, going bargain hunting today when Trump comes out and starts a big fight again tonight? Chucks another tant in the US, has another 600 points down. Would you want to be doing that, especially into your blue chips, because they're the ones going to get hurt the most? If the index is down, they're down. There's some that, when we've got one PNV, which is, what are we doing now? Up today. It's up. It looks like it's just about to trade through 180. If it gets through there, great. So that's did get sold off in the open and straight back up. So there's some that will be strong, but the general, the higher you go in the index, the more they're going to get knocked around with the actual, the massive sell-off. So I don't think it's time to be bargain hunting just yet. Saying all that, let's just go to the ASX. We'll have a bit of a look at that. I'll start longer term. I'll start right out. So we can see it's reacted quite hard. It was extended in all terms. We had the highs back in 2007, got sold off quite hard, worked all the way back up over the period of, 10 years from these lows, roughly 9.5 years or so, all the way back up. Touched on the highs. That monthly is extended. You're expecting some sort of reaction. If you're just looking purely at the monthly, you'd be going at first sort of zone. We had, this sell-off here. We bounced, pull back, bounced to here. You'd be first sort of port of call. Was it the highs at 5,000? Got through that all the way up. Good first, another really healthy correction lower. Then as you're going back up, another port of call at 6,000. So we're looking at all these zones on the way up. Bit of a correction there coming to the end of last year. The market was getting a bit tentative, but we fought back straight back up into the highs. So that is really that you're expecting some sort of reaction off that high, especially the way the market stretched into that high. If it was, if we're looking at the stochastics and we've extended into the high and we're only around 50%, you could sort of guess, or you can have a punt that it was going to go straight through the highs. It was going to take it out, and like we have before. We did here. We took out the highs at 6,000 here. We could have gone straight through, but we reacted strongly off that high. Got through a couple of points. Rejected the same day. So on the same day we got through, we reacted and finished below. Actually, let's go to the daily. Or did we? Am I lying to you? High close 60. Yeah, we did 68.41. 45.1 was the close on that day, which I think the high was 68.50.1. So we finished 5 points below that high. So you can see, and then you go, from your monthly to your weekly chart, how we traded now. We've reacted. So this is still your leg up on the weekly. So what we're trying to do now is, what we're trying to do now is decipher what we're doing. And I'm always looking pretty much, very similar price action across, whether it's a monthly, weekly, daily, 30 minutes. So it's pretty much similar price action, rather than looking at one and going, sticking to one chart and going, oh, we're looking for this. I would be looking over a number of different charts, but looking for very, very much the same price action, because to me, price action is mental. It's the psychology of trading. It's not, we talk about levels, but why does it react at this level? I mean, if you're buying it up here, if you're going to be at late, if you've done your research, that there's a key level up at the all-time highs on the ASX. So what's going to happen? I would, and if you're a bit nervous, you'd have your figure hovering over that sell button up there just to see, knowing that the market's also stretched on all time frames. It's on the monthly, the weekly, and the daily, all stretched into that level. Just reading. So that's what I think you've got to do. And then you've got to analyze it. Okay, so if we're looking up there, if the first sign of reaction, then what I'd be doing is doing exactly what we did, going from back to the daily to see what's the first key level to break. If it breaks that, what are we saying? Like, are we saying that the daily trend's breaking down and then stepping back? So if the daily's broken down off the highs, what can we expect? We either expect a bit of a breakdown, a bit of a pullback, reset, and go again. A bit of a contraction just on the daily if the weekly's still intact. Now, the weekly at the moment, that trend up is still intact. Oh, no, because look, it was a bit different. This move up was really all up. It didn't. It was just correcting on the dailies. You can see pressed up, sideways, pressed up, minor correction here, pressed up, minor correction here, up, correction, all the way up until we sort of corrected here. And by correcting, I tend to be looking for that a lower high coming into play, lower high, lower highs. So that's more of a correction. Same here, lower high, bit of a washout, lower high takes out the lows. Doesn't always have to take out the lows. It's got to do with where the anchors are, which we've spoken about previously too. But that's what I'll be looking for. And just to see if it breaks the anchor, what happens next. And if you drill it back to the weekly, it's a good healthy correction where you could just potentially sit straight on top of the MAs here and off we go. Forget about what the fundamentals are doing. Forget about what Trump, cracking his tanties on Twitter, going nuts. Forget about what the trade war is doing. If you're just looking at purely at this chart on the weekly, okay, yep, the daily's broken down. So what are we expecting? Some sort of consolidation potentially or a major correction. Let's just go and draw that. So we're looking, we've had our leg up. Just say that's a leg up. Then we're either looking for this kind of action to start the build, or we could just up, pull back, consolidate up here, and then off we go again. So you're looking for, could be just a consolidated sideways off the dailies, take out a bit of heat, or are we going to have a deeper correction? All these sorts of questions are yet to be answered yet. Yet to be answered. So is it just correction? Is this the base putting in place, or we're going to have a deeper correction? This is where your Fibonacci's could come in. I don't use them, but we're having a 30% pullback, 50 or 68 point, whatever it is, pullback. What's going to happen? And that's what we're trying to answer now. The market's answering it for us bit by bit. So at the moment, I wouldn't be looking at that daily at all, thinking about buying. On the weekly, we're looking at this weekly thinking, okay, potentially, there is potential we sit on top of these MAs and we start to build and we start to, any sort of selling pressures getting soaked up by the longer term buyers. This is an area where we could hold up, forgetting about what the global markets are doing, all that sort of stuff, but just purely looking at it from a technical perspective. So the weekly, okay, we know it's reacted off that zone, so at 68.5, touched all-time highs, reacted off, doesn't mean it can't just consolidate here, up we go, and off we go. Weekly's been hit quite heavily. You can see from stochastics from overbought to oversold. It's heading to oversold. And the monthly is just really reacted off there. You get the red candles all the time. They can consolidate, and up we go again. Just say this, for example. We reacted, big strong candle down, negative candle, next one positive. Then we start to consolidate in this zone, and then we lift up. We get to the all-time highs. There's nothing to say we can't do that here. Consolidate, maybe spike lower, bounce straight back up to be a green candle like we got here. Bit of consolidation sideways, not down, but consolidate sideways, and then lift and take out the all-time highs. So on the monthly, that's a possibility. Looking at the weekly, that's a possibility. On the daily, so our daily is the pointy end to the, how do you say it, the pointy end of the sword, or we're at the pointy end, and we've got a lot more detail on what's going on here. So the pullback at the moment is holding lower highs. Right, so the pressure's down in that pullback, but we've got the 6,400 we seem to be reacting off at the moment. Let's just see if we can see that on the, don't know why I can't see that on a 30-minute chart. So this 64 level, you can see we've shot down into it today. We could be bouncing off it. So there is a possibility that's holding up. Let's just take a step back to the daily again. That could hold up. We could consolidate and we could chop around and start to build that scenario we just pointing out on the daily, on the weekly, chop around, and then you'd want to see this level at the high at 65.45 taken out. If that gets taken out, that's a lower high. So that's pressure from the sellers starting to get bought up. So action that I'd be looking for off this daily. So don't forget, all we're trying to do is put together a picture of what we want to see. I'm not buying or selling, but if I see some action on the buy side, I'm not going to question it. I don't want to question it and say I'm right, it should be heading down, and then find out it rallies 600 points and I'm not on board it. So that's the action. So we just drew that up from the highs. All I'm trying to do is build the scenario and then decide what am I going to do. Right. So we've got this high up here. Really, my main concerns at the moment, and this low, which is you can see is 64 and say 65.50. So what I'd be looking for, if it's negative, you should hold under that. We should sort of maybe do a bit of this, drag in a few buys, and then boom, squeeze them out. Down we go. We break that low at 64, and then really got to sit back and say where are we going to from here. We've got levels at 6,300, level at 62. Maybe we blast through. We're heading all the way back down to 55. We don't know. When we've got to realize we don't know what's going to happen. If we start to break up and press up through this high at 64, and then we do a bit of this action, 2 legs down, and we start to lift, don't question it and be looking to buy. That's what I'd be looking for anyway, because we're buying, and we don't forget we're always buying in the unknown, not the known. And if this action starts playing out, you don't want to be biased down or up. You want to be letting it play out and see what happens. And then if that starts to look like a buy, if the index is starting to pick up, we're not the only ones thinking that. There's more people than us thinking that levels are going to hold, support's going to hold. There's buyers starting to step into the index. They're buying in it early. Okay, we're willing to give up a bit of profit just to make sure that we're buying with momentum rather than against it, momentum on the upside, and then just getting in. I mean, the problem is there's a lot of noise around at the moment, and there's some serious problems in the global economy. So that's why I am, if you want to question, I'm biased down at the moment, but I've got to keep it clear. You basically got to just train yourself to keep a clear view of what price action do you want to see. You're planning for that to be bearish, and I want to see some lower highs come in, and I want to see the selling pressure start to look like it's outweighing the buying pressure, and then you're looking for shorts. If it's the reverse and you start getting this pop up and then this sort of creeping down, but the buying pressure is soaking up that selling and start to outweigh the selling pressure, then even if the markets are a bit, I mean, you don't know what things have changed by then. This could take weeks to play out. It could be a few days. Price action probably more like weeks, months. If that starts to play out, you don't know what the scenario is, but you know what you're seeing to become bullish potentially, and then looking to target. Okay, we could be heading back up towards the highs. There's enough fat in it on the upside, so it is. No, it's very hard not to be biased, and that's the biggest. I feel the biggest thing with trading, and when I'm starting to get biased on things, that's where I start to make mistakes. You start to not see it. I mean, take for instance this sell-off here. You had a big sell-off here and a bounce back. Now, that was still negative to me right up until about this stage, and you missed this run-up. Okay, we missed that. It was over Chrissy, but I figure if it drops through there, because there's still negative news about at that stage, there was still, the world's caving in. That's all you're seeing. So you probably, if you're listening to what's going on, that negativity is still hanging around. But up until this stage, say the end of Jan, when you think it's chopping around here, go, if it breaks out to the top side, we want to be on board because we don't know what's going on. I mean, there's still some negative news around, but what I'm seeing is that negative news not playing out. And the way it's rallied off those lows as well, it's taken out a few lower highs. So it was just below for a sort of a key level for me. It was trading, it was consolidating below that key level. Now there was a potential that was going to roll over and keep going back and retest that low. But if it doesn't, I don't want to be trying to guess what's going on. I want to start to look for some quality setups. And that worked out quite well. Does that make sense? It is. You've got, well, the way I view things, I'd always be looking at what the global economy is doing, always trying to, you buy the banks, you're a heavy hitter. So you're always trying to figure out, I'm always looking at the macro economy, what's going on, because I tend to find that's keeping me out of trouble. And over the years, if you know what's happened on the macro scale, what the index is doing, it gives you a good idea of, I mean, you're probably going to see that if you're scanning through a lot of stocks, they're not setting up. Why they're not setting up? A lot of them extended, even though the market's going up. If they're all extended, is it a high probability that we're going to get some sort of rollover? And that's what was happening when we backed off from those highs, the all-time highs. We were just, in my opinion, we're running out of steam up here, and we're running out of setups to buoy it just going straight through, or to support it going straight through. There was a lot of shares were extended. There wasn't many setups, and there was a lot coming down. So, and they weren't setting up; they're sort of on their way down, so they're either up or down. And the ones that were going up were well and truly known. So you sort of look at that, and I'm always looking at it from the flip side. What would happen if we get a sell-off? What would happen in the markets if, something we don't see? It's not what we see; it's what we don't see comes out. So you've got to plan for that sort of scenario. What would happen if something coming out of the wings and caught us off guard? Anyone who's loaded long into the all-time highs, we've just traded through it in those stocks. What are they going to do? They're probably not going to hang around. They're going to take their money and run. And if they take their money and run, and then you've got 90% of them are, well, all these stocks that are long turning short, that's going to put pressure on the market. The ones that are already short are probably not going to get bought up in a negative environment. So that potential for it to get sold off was getting higher. The sort of more stretched the market came. Ah, thanks, Lauren. What's the market done now? Did this just pop up? Okay, so he's out talking. What's the SPY done? And we're up and racing on the upside. So there you go. News driven, we're probably going to pop. There you go. This is the SPY. Well, it's grinding up and it's just popped us to the upside. 88. It's only 12 points or so, but that's quite a sharp pop on the back of that news. Bye. Until Trump comes out and says, no, buggy, we're raising tariffs still. All right. I'm just going to quickly read through. Yeah, exactly. It's so news based, and that's the hardest thing, and that's what's going to keep people out. I think the more it's Twitter based or these news release based market, the harder it is to trade, and the more people are going to go, that's it. I'm just sitting on my hands. I'm going to watch this. Yeah, Phil. Yeah, so I'm just reading through. All right, that looks good. The traders have come back from lunch. Yeah, they have. It's funny that used to happen. All right, so we'll get into that's the way I'm viewing markets, and it's just a bit of a rant, I guess, on how things are working. But you know, with the negativity around it, if you are going to be biased, I'm potentially biased down. If I'm biased down and I want to be a bull, I want to see some work done. I want to see some work done, and I want my thesis to be proven wrong, and then try to figure out what's going on and try to find some good setups on the long side. If not, you're going to be proven right pretty quickly, and the market topples over. But we could get it some chopping around between 64, 65, chopping around there on the back of news driven, up down like a yo-yo, and then let things play out. Let things play out for the bearish scenario with a lower high, or bullish with a higher low, because that's evidence that someone's, the market weight of numbers is starting to buy at higher levels, or the weight of numbers are starting to sell at lower levels, and then base your portfolio, whatever you trade around that. BHP, all right. Let's put into some. Well, let's just quickly look at these gold stocks going bananas, but a lot of them have been sold as well. It's that reaction off gold. I don't like the fact that, say, Saracen up, but it's going to gap higher when you're up $30 on gold, but it's selling down into the close. It's not a good thing. Not a good thing. AQG, that's not. That's actually opened and rallied. That's not a bad thing. EVN, same sort of scenario, rallied. DCN, down from the open. That's, it's up, but it's kind of a choppy day. Not too much conviction on the upside on RMS. But yeah, so we'll see. Well, it's Newcrest. Newcrest, same. It's open, popped up, straight back down, so it's back down. You might find there's a bit of selling coming to the close if on the news of China. Let's just see what gold did. I should have a look at that. It's holding. It's not too bad. It's a 1 hour chart, so. And then we'll get into some stocks. So put some shares up. We'll start with BHP. We'll look at AVH. What else would we look at? Lauren dead keen to buy BHP. All right, so that's a 5 minute. It reacted low, but it sort of bounced back. So it's only a drop of 41 down to about 38. So a $3 drop. It's not much at all on the back of that news by the looks of it. All right, what was I going to show? I'll just quickly, we'll run over. I've got them here, haven't I? That's the SPY. This is the hourly chart. So we have, what's this? This is a Dow. We've reacted off that low. So we've gapped down on the open, bang straight back down. It looks like it's closing that gap from Friday night quite nicely. And that's what we were saying earlier this morning. We're talking about that reaction off that zone, just to see if it does react, which it has. Same with the S&P. The FTSE's not, for some reason, I don't think that's moved. That looks kind of out of whack, but and the DAX also has reacted, gap down on the open, which you probably didn't expect that much of a gap, but has pretty much grinding higher all day. And got that last little spurt higher today, just a minute ago. So yeah, they are reacting back up off this sell-off. Doesn't mean you'd be bullish, but it just means be watching for a deeper correction of this leg down, or see what happens next. Consolidation here, lower high, and start to push back down again. All right, let's look at some shares then. Get rid of that. What do we got? BHP. Yeah, so there's a difference between the two of us. I wouldn't buy that. Only because I want evidence. If it comes in the form of this lower high, sorry, higher low, you're not just picking bottoms, but the weekly's gone through, driven through those MAs. Same the dailies in the downtrend, weekly's through the MAs, which is not such a great sign. It is, let's just look at something here. Just draw this up. Just want to see. So it's right there. I mean, you could buy it off there. I mean, it's down there, and it's stretched down here. You can look at the MAs. This is on the daily, don't forget. Sorry, the stochastics down. People might be buying off this zone, but again, just be me as me, being a bit of a risk, making sure I'm risk adverse in this scenario. I would be just looking for that minor high low. If you're going to, you can edge in and then potentially add to as it going up. If not, take a small stop, small loss on a small position. But that's still in a longer term uptrend. You can see obviously quite clear 16, 17, 18, 19. It's still in a clear uptrend. We've come straight back down to that support zone just below 35. Like I said, I'd ideally just like some sort of minor high low, and then you know exactly where your risk is. If you see where it goes to from there, it's just not playing out just yet. It's driving down. It's getting bought up here. A couple of days, it's opening down and buying up. Opening down, it's been bought up a bit. This might help it if China is talking about solving the trade dispute, but we'll see. I think they're trying to look like the good guy. That weekly is getting to that oversold zone. It's probably going to be choppy. And like I said, I would always be looking for something like that high low. And I want to see it pop back up, bit of volume, consolidate, maybe build your higher low, and then you'd think that trend could take you through the highs, but you never know what's going to happen. By horizontal support on these two, not trend lines. Yeah, I know those trend lines, you get a lot of people look at them as in your retail, but like you said, your horizontal is where the action reaction levels are going to be, because that's where you bought it, your price. You didn't. So if it was coming down here, potentially it's just above 30. You know, it's reacted off that zone a couple of times. So there's people who bought it here, maybe still holding it. Maybe they took some profit up here. Who knows what they're doing? But people who bought it around that zone are going to start to feel the pressure. They're back to neutral, break even. So it's a different type of mentality rather than just this is probably where your algos or your longer term traders that are building position will just go, we'll just buy it off here, see what happens. But it's not, I'm exactly the same. I'm more keen on these, see this tops across here, looking at it going 1, 2, 3 times it's failed, look for a lower high. You might have tried a lower high here, didn't quite work out. You got a break even trade or scratch, lower high here, probably a bit early, but off here you got a lower high looking to sell, bounce back, come all the way down. Because you know that that's where there's some selling going on. You know, the market's heading south, some selling into that level, into that actual price, not purely at a rising support level, or was it a dropping support level, all that sort of stuff. Especially on if you're looking at SPY intraday, I'm always looking at that zone. I do take as a guide. I would take anyway. Let's just get rid of that. There's nothing around just at the moment, but I would take as a bit of a guide. Oh, there's nothing to show you. Oh, this. Just say that was your. Sorry, I just thought Helen brought up a good point. So that was your rising support. I wouldn't buy off that just because it's okay. It's touched down. I think that's a bit dangerous because where's your risk going to be? And what if you gets washed? What if it does get washed out? You get stopped out and then you get it right. I would look like that. Okay, if it's going to hold up here, I want to see push. Like anything, I want to see a push down, and then maybe I want to be confirmation through a higher low or something like that. That's what I'd be looking for off that zone. And then goes, okay, it's a good continuation zone. There's people willing to put it in there. Now I'm in profit. I'm buying on the rise, and then obviously looking to your resistance. What's going to happen up at resistance? But ideally, the bigger zones are going to be your horizontal. There's going to be where there's going to be a lot of action reaction because this just rising support is a trend. It's a trend-based support. It's not a key level at all. Thanks for that point there, Helen. Now I'm going to go BHP. So what are you thinking of doing that, Lauren? You're thinking of more buying it because of that support? I mean, as a point, it's broken down through the last couple of days, broken down through an anchor level. So the anchor level for me is more straight through around 37, give or take. Around 37. So that's my anchor level, and I think it's just broken through the anchor. So it was anchor this move up. Whether we have a deeper correction or whether we hold up here, you can easily extend, touch on that, start to build this scenario and go up again. It doesn't mean the anchor level is broken. It's an end to a trend. It just could be it's washed out a few stops, come back down and resuming that trend up. This is a good healthy correction. Quite different compared to this correction, sort of this correction that held up support here. Then you held a high low, beautiful little entry through here. You got that expansion higher. Yeah, so it's broken the anchor, so I'd be a bit concerned about that. But if we do push down through here, I wouldn't go near it because I think we're either going to correct or we're going to go straight down to 30 and then react off 30. And then ideally, I would be looking for the reverse if it goes back up. Just say we broke. So we've got this scenario. This is my rising support. I would be looking for, in this scenario, if it does get through, say, what is it, 34, 35? 34 and a half, 35. It gets through that rising support here. And it could even trade down to 30. I'll be looking for a key, potentially lower high. And that could be longer term, but a bit of a bounce and then see what happens if you do get a lower high. It could be some selling opportunities, a new start of a new trend down, and it could target all the way down to, not saying it will, 16. And there's a lot of levels, back down to 30, back down to 23. So what ideally you're trying to get through the start of a trend, whether this starts to trend down or we've got continuation of this overall trend up with this scenario. We just have to wait and see now. Play on div run. Yeah, okay. I don't do that much. All right. What was next? AVH. You had Peter. What else? Is there anything else you want to take a look at? We can blab on about. Yeah, this one. I like that structure. I'm waiting. I'm essentially waiting for. I would be waiting for a higher low because you look at. So with this one, what you're battling with, and it's a bit like PNV, we're sort of battling with the same thing. It's worked out fine. And the good thing with PNV, what I did like, if we can go back, so the weekly, good strong trend up, pretty much from 60 cents to 180, so triple 180 before we've had this correction lower. They had some good news out, I think, which has sent it back up again. So you're targeting potentially the highs or through the highs, but you've got to remember in the back of your head, it's going to be extended. There is some volume coming in, which is a good sign too. So there's a lot of good signs that this could just continue, even if it is extended on the weekly. And that daily setup, I like, push down, wash out, rejection, lower high. The lower high rejected again. Then you've got a high low coming to play just below, around that 145 mark. So I do like that. And that's why we basically went long, was it 67.5? And held strong today. So we're potentially looking to take a partial if we can get through that 180 wall. What's happening with that 180? And it's reducing. If there's more pressure on that 180, 179, 180 zone, it'll probably blast through. If it blasts through, I think we're going to take a profit pretty quickly at 184. Yeah, being spooked. Okay, so I like that. Even though it's a similar to AVH. If we go back to look at AVH, let's just get rid of that. The weekly extended, it's holding up here, and the MA is pretty much directly up. Very steep uptrend. It's holding up. It's being rejected, but it's just slightly different. You're not getting that correction lower with a lower high, getting washed out and spiking back up, looking for a higher low. At the moment, I don't think we've played out with a higher low just yet to confirm that people are willing to buy. Let's go back. People are willing to buy and hold it above 32.5, 33. You can see it's touched down here, lower high, pressed down, quite heavily, bang straight back up. Got a lower high again, off that 32.5 zone, come back down and rejected it for a third time. So the more you rejected it, the more the buyers are starting to get a bit of confidence, or new buyers are starting to get a bit of confidence. So I don't mind that, except the one thing is this sort of run up. I haven't seen the setup. I mean, you could argue this is a high low, but I don't think it's a key high low. It's just a bit of a reaction. So the key legs for me to be looking at AVH, I know we've alerted this a few times, is that's a leg up, that's a pullback, that's a leg up, lower high, pullback, good support through, pop back up. So you got this sort of lower high coming to play. We did press down, so I'm sort of skipping all this chop. That's a higher low, but we've just broken through. So ideally want to see a breakthrough there, and then I want to see my first pullback, see what happens, and then get into it. So if it pulls back here, it could pull back, little minor pullback like that. And I'd love to see that two-legged action. That makes sense. 1, 2, but hold a higher level at about 40 compared to 35, say, and then see if you can get your entry set up, because that's broken through. It looks like it's coming out of contraction. So the contraction is this. That's your, just change colors. I like my colors. That's your contraction off that leg up. And we're looking for that secondary leg. So we're trying to get this kind of entry in a major leg higher, potentially anyway. We could run into trouble at 52.5 and might make a major double top and then game over. But that's ideally what we're looking for on that. Trying to take advantage of this next major leg up, potentially like this. Now we have to sit through some chop, but that's what I'll be looking for, that kind of a setup. Now that we've broken, it was a couple of days ago, not today, but Friday, wasn't it? It broke up. I find it very hard. If I'm going to buy here, I'm not putting my stop all the way down here at 30, below 35. I think that's way too much percentage and risk terms. We've got a very small position. I'd rather it squeeze in, build this higher low that I'm looking for, if it can around 40, and then look to buy into it, because you're buying into the next sort of wave up of this big leg up, and you're sort of in the start. You're potentially buying, like we said, in the unknown. We're going from expansion, contraction. We're looking to buy back into expansion, and this is how I would attack it anyway. Does that make sense? So this is on the cards anyway. What else have we got? ALC. Yeah, same sort of thing. It's been cleaned out, so it's cleaned out. And it's actually held up the last few days Today it's holding up. Obviously, a lot of things do gap down. It's only 138 market cap. It's only a smallie. So a lot of these things will, you get the market getting caned on, you get the market getting knotted around on Friday night. You know that no one, I mean, if anyone in their right mind is not going to buy in the open, you're going to see what happens. Who knows if you can buy it? If you're really dead keen on buying, you're not going to buy in the open because it could open 10% lower. So you'd be watching that, let it settle, and then potentially buy on a stock like this. So that's why you obviously do get gaps. It's gapped down, but it's pretty much open and closed. It's a bit choppy. Intraday action's a bit choppy, but it's holding up there quite nicely. So that's that. For me, is more confirmation of that overall trend. I think I'd be nervous about running into a double top here because it could easily, the way we've moved on this one, I'll draw it up what I'm talking about. It could go, but if you bought it here, sitting on the MAs, yeah, potentially I want to see some volume. It's stretched up here, at this level. It's tried a couple of times. We run into those previous highs around 18.5 to 19.5. 1, 2, 3. I call that all sort of one zone where there's selling coming in. Last time selling coming in, it popped through straight down, got all the way back down to 12.5, worked its way back up. So this is the first time we've been back to the same level after a correction. Let's just, come on, here we go. So actually, let's not worry about that high. It's more of a zone, but for me, it's more sort of up here, 19.5. So you can see it's gone up, up. That's all part of one leg, still all part of one leg, still all part of one leg. So that's your high. This is the first time we sort of corrected. Draw that in a different color. You can see 1, 2. So that's a complex correction. We've corrected this leg up, and we're starting to lift again. 1, 2. Now, if this starts backing off from here, and we start getting this action again, that's a double top. I'd expect to go straight through 12.5 and have a major corrective price action lower. And that you got to put stock into that. That's a double top. I know what you got there. Left, right, doji coming on, big drop. Yeah, 2 dojis there, but I'm sort of more inclined to think that that's always going to happen on massive down days when expectation is the market's going to get smashed. I would look, that should be first level at 15. If we get through 15, anyone who bought it above that is under pressure and going to be selling. If you bought it here, just because those last couple of days, and you bought it around here, you'd be looking going, okay, on the stops below, probably going to be below 15. If you bought it up here, pretty aggressive buy, but this could easily turn around. So we've got this action up, 1, 2. That's essentially a double top. Come down here, we could just go back up again, take out that high, which is at 19, off we go. But it hasn't failed just yet. I'm looking more inclined to think if it comes back down a bit, has to go, something like that, I'll be looking to sell and not forget about buying. So I think that's a major lower high. If we pop up here and then go down, major lower high, which would lead me to believe that's your double top. We call it retest fail. Normally that is going to lead to some more selling. If you've been buying it all the way up here, you saw this and you go, okay, first correction, okay, I can weather that because I'm sitting on quite a bit of profit. Then we go back up and fail a second time, you wouldn't question it. Potentially you wouldn't question it. A lot of people wouldn't anyway if you're looking into your technicals. You like that. A double tops means either you're going back down to retest the key high low, which is at 13, or you're going to go break it. Like we said, you need more energy to get through that 19.5 zone. So you either need to retest here, clean out a few more of these buyers in here, put them back on the sideline, start to build. They might jump back in again and see if you can get through that 19.5 zone on the third try. But if you can't, and then it comes down to, if we do correct, how hard and fast do we correct? Does that make sense? But anyway, I wouldn't, saying all that, Laura, I'd probably inclined just to sit on the sidelines in this one too. I'm pretty passive at the moment, so for me now, I want quality setups, and I felt that PNV was a good one. Where are we? Come on. I felt that was a good one at the time. Here we go. Is it Trader 180? Trader 180. Traded chunk. Look at that. No, it didn't. So someone's bailed. So anyone noticed before at 180 on PNV, there was 400,000 shares. It's traded, well, just say about 10,000 5,000 shares, and it looks like a lot of the people are bailing. They're trying to build a bit of a wall, but it looks like it's going to go through that wall. So anyone that's sort of sitting there behind it would just go, oh, look, I'm bailing. I'm just going to take it off. There's still 300,000 shares there. It's 300 grand. But the way it's gone, look at that. Let's just watch this. Everyone's seeing what I'm seeing now. There's a lot of intraday traders that trade on the back of that sort of stuff. Once the wall's been there for a while and it sits there, and there's sellers coming in, but it doesn't take out, it doesn't change, and buyers keep soaking up that selling pressure. As soon as that wall goes, it can trigger. They can buy into that wall before it gets chopped away, which is probably going to be pretty fast. Then there was, what was that? There's quite a few, quite some big orders probably triggering there, but a lot of intraday guys will buy into that wall in anticipation that they've been watching the price action. It doesn't move. No one's actually coming in to sell. They're actually getting soaked up. Every day, minor pullbacks are getting soaked up, and it's getting pressure back into that wall again. They will anticipate the break and then only take out 3, 4, 5 cents. So it'll be interesting now to see that we got through 180. I'm expecting to get tagged later in the day at 184. There's not much in the way there either. And then potentially, yeah, that was awesome to see. I think it's really important to look at market depth too, what's going on. I think Vin, we were talking about it in the what is it called, in the forum before, Discord, about that. It's getting capped there. I was more worried that if it's going to be held up there and any buying is just going to disappear purely because they're looking at that, going, there's a big seller there, we're not going to get through that. I'm going to take my profit while I can. And then you get no buying, but the problem is there was also a massive buy coming in, and he wanted it up. And every time you could see, the more it's soaking up on the pullbacks, intraday anyway, so it was getting down to 78, 77. It got down to at one stage, about straight back up to 79. That's a good sign that we're going to take out that wall, and someone's just smacked it. Probably that guy, the same trader's just gone and smacked it. So it's great to see that. So yeah, I'm expecting there's only not 100 and something thousand shares in the way of us. If it starts loading up a bit there, if you're going to take some profit, you could easily take it rather than wait for a 184. No qualm taking it here. You're up probably about 9% on that trade since a couple of days. Worthwhile, especially considering the climate. For a really bullish climate, bullish market, let it go. But the fact is that a lot of these breakouts don't run that much because of the overall climate. It's worth taking something off the table if you're long this. And tighten up that stop. I'd probably keep the stop at 160 for now. Risking a few from 167.5, risking a few cents, locking away some gains and seeing what happens. With any luck, we might be able to watch this go through 184, or maybe not. All right then, guys. Anything else you want to quickly look at? CSL. Oh yeah, I can say. I see what you're saying. CSL left, right, doji combo, big drop. Good washout, eh? I like that inside. I like it when it does that. It does that. It's broken through that high. So you got the high gapped up, had a bit of a pullback, tried to close the gap. What was that day? Was that on that down move? 15th of August. Started to lift again. You can see that high at 235.65. Did we get through that day? What am I talking about? 23.565. 23. No, we didn't get it through on the 21st. Got through it, gapped up straight through the next day. Indecisive day. As soon as you get that, if you were trading really short term, you'd be looking at that, going, hang on a second, how come that's not following on? Have I just been caught in a trap? Been trapped on that gap up? Yeah, that was on the 26th. That was a Thursday. Gapped up. That would have probably done a lot of damage on the open. It's actually opened slightly higher. Where did it open? 23.764. Only traded, would say a little bit higher. Next day was indecision and an inside range bar really of the previous day. So the Friday was really sort of indecisive, coming to the Jackson Hole and everything, and then bang, got caught. So a big trap by the looks of it. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see. what happens from here. Over longer term trends up. It's just getting a bit extended. Where was that high? And that high was the same, high 23,269. So you're in line last time, traded up. So it's really struggling to get on with it. All right, guys. So we might just call it a day there. Just going to see where PNV, it's straight back down to 180. Let's see if that can run on. Come on, don't break it and then disappear. I'd be annoyed if that comes back down and finishes down again today. All right, guys, we'll probably call it a day. Thanks very much for joining us. We'll see how we go tonight. I'll be back in tomorrow to do that morning. Hopefully it's turned into about 20, 25 minutes this morning. I only want to really chat about 5 or 10 minutes just to go over what's happening in the open, some levels. But the way it is at the moment, it's good having a chat in the morning just to see, especially if the market gets volatile again tonight, because some of these swings are going to be quite big. I assume it's going to be quite big going forward. There's a lot to work out. A few news alerts from Z and something from Trump is not going to change the sentiment of the market too quick. It would make it choppy because then some Trump comes out and says something positive tonight on the back of what was it Chinese Z said. Xi, I can't say it. On the back of that, we're going to probably have a mad swing because everyone's going to be looking, okay, buy the dip. It's a massive dip of 600 and something points on Friday. We'll buy the dip, bang, up she goes, and then it stalls. Some more news comes out. It's negative, bang, straight back down again. So I think it's going to increase the volatility. I think longer term there's going to be some work to be done before this market sort of recoups and regains some footing, back into a bullish market. So time's going to be interesting. All right, guys, we'll finish up there. So tomorrow morning, around, say, the 9:45 mark, we'll have a look at the open, see what's going on, see what happens overnight, and just go from there. All right, guys, have a great day. We'll speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye.